Judd, a young priest and an ex-boxer, punches a colleague out of annoyance and gets called into a panel meeting to discuss his punishment. During the meeting, Judd tries to plead his case, but when he doesn't get an evaluation, he waits outside for the chief priest. Outside, while Judd tries pleading his case again, the chief priest interjects to inform Judd that the panel has decided to send him to a small declining parish led by an eccentric priest in upstate New York, with the sole purpose of improving and recruiting new members of the church. Following the panel's decision, Judd travels to the small parish and introduces himself to Wicks, the eccentric priest leading the church. In the church, Judd's spirit nearly leaves his body when Martha, the church manager, appears out of nowhere to talk to Wicks and welcome him into the church. Unlike Martha, Wicks doesn't welcome Judd, rather, he sees him as a threat. So, in an attempt to frustrate Judd into quitting, Wicks brings him outside to confess a bucket load of horrible atrocities to him. Over the next few weeks, Judd learns a lot. The first being that Samson, the groundskeeper, has the hots for Martha, and as for the second, Judd realizes that Martha is responsible for everything functioning in the church. One afternoon, while Martha and Judd sort out documents in the office, Martha narrates a story of how Prentice, the church founder, had started the church as a widowed father cursed with an ungodly daughter. According to Martha, Prentice's wayward daughter gave birth to Wicks out of wedlock, so to keep his daughter from leaving the church with his grandson, Prentice promised to give all his fortune to her when he died. But when Prentice died, he left her nothing. Her father's deception roused up an ungodly rage in her heart, so she tears the church apart and throws herself on the floor. Continuing from where she stopped, Martha narrates that when she tried to console Prentice's daughter smacked Martha continuously until she was dragged away. And later that night, Prentice's daughter throws herself against her father's tomb, unaliving herself in the process. Keeping Martha's story in mind, Judd decides it's time to look beyond the church, and to do so, he has to interview the church's prominent members. The first prominent member he interviews is Vera, a strange woman living under the shadows of her death. After interviewing Vera, Judd turns to Cy, Vera's half-brother and ward. Moving on from Cy's brain-rotting interview, Judd approaches Nat, a pathetic doctor struggling to get over his divorce. Up next is Lee, a local sci-fi writer trying to revive his fallen career by writing a novel about Wicks. After interviewing Lee, Judd goes to interview Simone, an injured retired world-class cellist, who believes that Wicks can heal her. Now that Judd has interviewed all 5 of the prominent members, he realizes that the church isn't declining because of external factors. Rather, it is declining because Wicks's self-absorbed preachings and aggressiveness scare new members away. Adding to his realization, Judd assumes that Wicks is scaring new members away on purpose so that he can conjure a cult-like congregation devoted to him. Attempting to study Wicks's mental grip on the congregation, Judd calls Martha and the 5 prominent members for a prayer meeting. But the moment Martha and the others realize Wicks isn't aware of the meeting, they all excuse themselves. After the members leave, Martha stays back to accuse Judd of planning a coup against Wicks. But Judd retorts that everyone, including her, is afraid of Wicks. Of course, Martha denies this fact, and when Judd dares her to confess her greatest sin to Wicks without fear, Martha agrees to the challenge. Having fulfilled the challenge, Martha smirks at Judd outside the confession room. Right after she leaves, Wicks barges out of the room, panting as he has just seen a ghost. On the 9th-month mark of Judd's visit, Judd confronts Wicks over his self-absorbed preachings and the poor state of the church. Instead of accepting his wrongs, Wicks punches Judd and tries to bait him into getting angry, but Judd doesn't take the bait. Later that night, Judd walks in on Wicks poisoning the minds of the members again, only for Wicks to pursue him. Right after Wicks chases him away, Judd branches at a bar where he grabs a unique ornament. One day, Wicks suddenly collapses in a corner. Immediately, Judd rushes to check him, and when he sees blood, Nat, the only doctor amongst them, moves Judd out of the way so he can check the blood-stained ornament on Wicks's back. Seeing the bloody ornament makes Martha act crazy and distract the congregation, but by the time the congregation faces Nat again, they see him pulling out a knife from Wicks's back. Moments later, the police take Judd to the station for questioning. At the station, Geraldine, the local detective, shows Judd a video of him and Wicks's argument, before pointing out that Judd is the only man with a motive to murder Wicks. Despite the accusations, the police allow Judd to go home, but on his way home from the questioning, Judd realizes everyone thinks he's the crime suspect in Wicks's murder. When he reaches the church, Judd approaches the altar to pray, but a strange man interrupts him. The strange man baits Judd into a conversation, but after entertaining and resonating with the stranger's conversations, Judd realizes that the stranger is the legendary Blanc, a private detective working independently from the police. But now that his cover is blown, Blanc explains that he has come to help Judd solve Wicks's mysterious murder. The following day, Judd meets Blanc and Geraldine to examine Wicks's body, but the sight of a lifeless body makes Judd squirm and leave the room. Refusing to let Judd leave, Blanc finds a way to convince Judd to agree to solve the case with them. Now that Judd is back on the team, Blanc takes Geraldine and Judd to the bar to confirm if the ornament on Wicks's back is the same as the one Judd had taken. Later on, the trio meets up at the church to discuss Blanc's lead, and while Blanc flashes one of his books in Geraldine's face, the book ignites a memory of Judd's. Rusting his memory, Judd takes Blanc and Geraldine to Martha's office, where he shows them another lead. Acting on Judd's lead, Blanc proceeds to the place of the murder to point out all the possible instances of how Wicks was killed. Seeing as all of Blanc's instances point to an impossible fact of a remotely activated knife, Geraldine brings his attention to the red threads found on the murder scene. As Blanc racks his brain for a plausible instance, Martha interrupts them by crying to Judd to drive the detectives out of the church. Instead of kicking the detectives out, Judd walks Martha out, and while they're outside, Martha accuses Judd of killing Wicks. Martha's accusation riles up rage in Judd's mind, so Judd goes to Samson's place to blow off some steam. While he blows off steam, Judd realizes that Samson, who is a big football fan, must have been recording the game on the radio about the same time Wicks was murdered. And if the killer used a remote to activate the knife, the remote signal would interfere with the game's recording signals. Just in case his realization might help the case, Judd takes the recorded game to the station, where an officer confirms that the signal interference in the recorded game is consistent with the timing of Wicks's death. The following morning, after Wicks's burial, despite the others' protests, Cy informs Blanc that he has the full record of Wicks's last meeting. According to the recorded video, the meeting starts with Vera lashing out at Wicks for deceiving her into believing Cy was her father's illegitimate son when, in reality, Cy is Wicks's son. After letting Vera rant some more, Wicks introduces Cy as his son to the rest of the group. All of a sudden, Wicks announces that he has plans to not only close down the church, but also take all of them down with it. Doubling down on his threats, Wicks reminds each of them about their deepest, darkest secret before lashing out and threatening to expose them all around the town. And just like it happened weeks ago, Judd walks in, and the meeting ends right after Wicks chases him away. After the recorded video ends, Cy admits that he went to confront Wicks the moment he found out he was Wicks's son, and Wicks had not only acknowledged his claims but also told him about locating Prentice's hidden fortune. Cy continues that he and Wicks had made a pact to get rid of the church and use the Prentice's fortune to influence Wicks's political influence. After Cy leaves, Blanc and Judd inspect the heirloom Prentice passed down to his daughter, but after finding nothing, Judd comes across a receipt for a tomb opening company a week before Wicks's death. Following this lead, Judd rings the company on the receipt to ask who ordered the tomb opening, but instead of giving a straight answer, the employee beats around the bush and convinces Judd to pray for her sick mother. After praying for the employee's mother, Judd feels his soul disconnect from the case. Noticing Judd's sudden disinterest in the case, Blanc tries to convince him to get his head back in the case, but Judd refuses. And after many failed attempts to pull Judd back into the case, Blanc finally agrees to keep Judd out of the investigation. With Judd out of the picture, Geraldine informs Blanc that when she rewatched the clip of Wicks's death, there was a window of 9 seconds that Judd could have used to stab the priest unnoticed before the congregation reached him. Despite agreeing with Geraldine's take, Blanc tries to get Geraldine to give Judd grace, but she refuses, instantly. Meanwhile, Judd witnesses Wicks walking out of his tomb. And even though what he witnessed makes his senses numb, Judd runs to find Samson, but he trips on his way, and when he stands up, he blacks out suddenly. Right after imagining he stabbed Wicks, Judd recovers from his blackout to see a sickle stuck in Samson's chest. The sight makes Judd jump in fear, and when he notices Blanc approaching him, he runs away. After identifying the dead man on the ground as Samson, Blanc and Geraldine return to inspect the open tomb. While the detectives try to wrap their heads around Wicks's resurrection, Martha pops out of nowhere to praise Wicks for resurrecting. Mid-praise, a cop reports the discovery of a camera to Geraldine. As soon as Geraldine informs Blanc about the camera discovery and Samson's death, Martha runs into the woods to mourn Samson. Meanwhile, Nat gets a mysterious visitor. And while Nat tends to his visitor, Blanc sees Judd walk into the station, beeline for the reception. But before Judd gets to the reception, Blanc drags him into his car to not only stop Judd from turning himself in, but also to ask for directions to Nat's house. At Nat's house, Blanc and Judd discover that Wicks's lifeless body is pinning down Nat's melted body in the tub filled with acid. Despite the discovery, Judd returns to the church to confess he killed Samson, but before he does, Blanc interrupts him and commands the congregation to take their seat while he reveals the truth about Wicks's murder. However, halfway into his revelation, Blanc admits the case has no plausible solution. Seeing that Blanc has nothing to say, everyone, excluding Geraldine and Judd, leaves, And just as Blanc yaps about giving the enemy grace, Martha approaches Judd to confess her sins. Apparently, many years ago, Prentice had bought a gem with all his fortune, swallowed it, and got buried with it. She continues that, contrary to the story she told Judd about Prentice's daughter didn't tear the church down out of rage. She did it because she was looking for the gemstone. Martha confesses that instead of praying, her younger self had insulted Prentice's daughter, which is what led her to strike Martha. After her first wave of confession, Martha reminds Judd of the dare he challenged her to and how she foolishly told Wicks about the whereabouts of the gemstone because of it. She adds that after confirming that Wicks had made arrangements to recover the diamond from Prentice's tomb, she teamed up with Nat, who spiked Wicks's alcohol pouch with a tranquilizer and stabbed Wicks while she created a distraction. Continuing her confession, Martha reveals that they instructed Samson to take Wicks's place in the tomb, so that he could retrieve the gemstone and walk out of the tomb, mimicking a resurrection of Christ, while Nat takes Wicks's body to dissolve it in the tub. Martha narrates how she discovered Nat had double-crossed her by killing Samson and making arrangements to kill her so that he could keep the gemstone. But unfortunately for Nat, she outsmarts him and covers her tracks by creating the scenario that Blanc and Judd walked into in Nat's basement. Immediately after her confession, Martha falls to the ground, and Blanc informs the others that Martha had taken poison. On cue, Geraldine leaves to fetch a poison aid kit, but while she's away, Martha takes her final breath before letting go of the gemstone. Fast forward to a year later, even though the church, which had been closed after Martha's death, most of the prominent members had restarted their lives, and those who couldn't, found a resolve to make life good again. Meanwhile, Cy is hellbent on getting the gemstone from Judd, who denies ever seeing it. And despite all the deaths surrounding the little parish, Judd returns to New York to reopen the church. Despite the Wicks murder case seeming uncrackable at first glance, Blanc, together with Judd and Geraldine, finds a way to solve the mystery behind Wicks's murder. Now that Wicks's murder has been solved, and the church has been reopened, what do you think is next for Blanc? Do you think he would retire, or would he find another impossible mystery to solve? Tell us your predictions in the comments. Until next time, guys. Peace out.